Welcome to the Thoroughly Wrong Project with Lalo and Bob. We appreciate you spending some time with us today. Let's jump right into that weekly dose of things you can disagree with. Take it away, guys.
All right. Good morning and welcome to the Thoroughly Wrong Project. It's 8:30 in the morning on Sunday, and I'm pretty fucking sleepy. This is Bob. Yeah, Bob and Lalo. I think you got home late last night, Lalo?
It felt like it for sure, but I'm just not a morning person in general. So,
Hey, who won that game you went to?
the Dodgers won. They're playing the Marlins.
Oh,
So
Florida.
yeah,
Florida. I don't know much about baseball, so.
One of the reasons we went was because like the little group, like the little friend group that me and my girlfriend went with, they actually know one of the pitchers for the Marlins. So there was a chance that he might pitch, and he ended up pitching and doing pretty well. So that was pretty like fun to watch.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's like somebody, actually like, making it big time.
That's awesome, man. Is he from here in Bakersfield?
He's from California,
All right.
but he's like a very close friend of one of my friends, if that makes sense. He
Yeah.
was like in their wedding and everything. So
Oh, well, that's awesome, man. It's always nice to know somebody famous.
just in case you ever need it.
Just in case.
Hey,
Yeah.
remember that one time I met you at that one wedding? I need your help now.
Well, that's the way shit works, man. Friend of a friend. The
Yeah.
I was trying to get some tickets to the Condors games this weekend. There's the playoffs, but they're still not. It's online. It says they're still not available.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been to a hockey game in probably like a year or two.
Yeah,
And
that's.
before then, like never.
Well, I like hockey. I don't know much about it, but my son-in-law is like this huge Colorado fan, and he got me interested in it. And then I went to a couple games, and even when you don't know what the fuck is going on, it's pretty exciting to watch. Every now and then two people beat the fuck out of each other. It's like,
I like that rule in hockey. Like they're gonna get penalized anyway, so they let them fight.
yeah, let them fight. Hell with it.
They should do that in every sport. Every time they throw a flag in football, well, you're getting a flag anyways. Might as well duke it out for a bit.
But no, in football they stop that shit pretty quick.
Yeah.
And like you said, they shouldn't, because everybody's got a helmet on. That's fine. Go after it. And this, I hope they get that done this week and get that mask ordinance kind of lifted. I mean, that's some good news this week, right? That's kind of over for those of us who've got shots, and the rest of us will just lie about it.
I was talking about it yesterday a little bit, and I was thinking, like, for me personally, like I really don't care about wearing a mask. Like it doesn't bother me. Like I don't get annoyed by it. Um, but the thing I've noticed is that like this past year, I usually get sick like once, maybe twice a year, like a cold or something. I've not gotten sick a single time, and I'm 100% convinced it's because I've been wearing a mask.
It's
So I might
true.
just wear it a little longer, just because like I don't like I said, it doesn't bother me. It's not a nuisance to me. I'm not annoyed by it. So I mean, if it helps me not get sick, um,
I was
I'm all for
thinking after, at the
it.
end of summer when flu season starts again, I'll probably start wearing it to the grocery store and, when I'm around people, because like you said, I'm not one who usually gets sick at all, but I felt healthier in the past since we started wearing this mask, which has been like 11 months, 12 months. I felt healthy. I haven't been sick, and it's been pretty nice. Actually, valley fever instances are down, flu is down, everything's down. So we're wearing masks. So for all of those people out there that's like, it's not doing them any good, I think we need to look at the statistics and the science of this instead of
Yeah.
just, it's making me uncomfortable.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure most people, and there's like a lot of like retail stores like Walmart, Costco, they're gonna start lifting the mandates. And I mean, they say like if you're fully vaccinated, but like you said, people are just gonna lie, like they don't, and they're not
Yeah.
gonna like check you or anything. They're not gonna ask for your vaccination card, so it's pretty much just like back to normal for the most part.
Yeah. People are going to, I think the cases will rise a little bit again because I read yesterday that if it's all up to the American people now to not lie, and the experts are saying that it's not going to happen. People are just going to take it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I still feel like there's a good chunk of people that are gonna leave it on, just even if they are vaccinated
Yeah.
or if they're not, just because it's like they actually care about other people's health.
My
So
my wife's going to continue to wear one, but
yeah,
yeah, she's a little fragile in the health area at this point. So she's going to continue to wear one. And like I said, in a large group of people, I'm going to do it. I mean,
yeah,
and the funny thing is people think that taking the mask off is about them when we who are wearing masks are doing it for other people because I'm vaccinated. I have a 95% chance of not getting it. And if I do get it, it's going to be asymptomatic and I'm not going to get sick, but I wear a mask to protect others. And that's really funny that people don't care about other people to the point where it's sad.
yeah.
It's
I
sad.
uh, I was on Twitter yesterday or 2 days ago, and Megan McCain, she tweeted like it was like a story post about the like mask mandates being lifted, and like she posted that, and then above it she captioned it like in all caps like freedom.
Yeah.
And then I replied to her, I was like, only Republicans would think that wearing a mask is oppressive. And I was just like, I don't know, that gave me a good chuckle for the day.
Republicans. They're getting ready to split, aren't they?
I hope so.
You hope
Be the
so. I
best
hope
for
so.
everybody. Yeah, they're just I've I feel like with them, a lot of them, more than they'll admit, are more of the Liz Cheney type of Republicans. They just can't publicly admit that because when they do, you get Liz Cheney and what happened to her.
Right.
Like they know, what Trump says, like that rhetoric that, keeping him as their leader, unofficially is dangerous, and like it's just like not a good idea. But they also know that he has this huge like base of supporters,
Hmm.
and as soon as if any Republican like shuns Trump, then you just lost like that whole base.
Yeah.
And like I've said many many times, Republicans are all about money and power. So when they lose that voting base, they lose their power because they'll lose their reelection.
Well, secondarily, Lalo, I think there's an issue here that people aren't looking at, and what we need to see is, let's say, be, let me back up. I read this morning. I got up at 6 o'clock to read, so I wouldn't look like a fucking idiot online today. Yeah, you know how that works. But I was reading an article about people like Kevin McCarthy who will stand in the White House driveway and say, yes, this is our president, Biden's our president, and then talk out the other side of his mouth when he goes to rallies and say, and make allusions to the fact that, hey, maybe the election wasn't legal, or maybe it was stolen from us. So he can stand on the fence and see both sides of it. But the thing is, what if people like McCarthy and Cheney and all these people got voted out? Who the fuck would be voted in? That's the issue.
All these like
Marjorie
all
Taylor Greens would be there,
yeah,
and we'd have
her
a, yeah. I
Kamala.
don't want that either. I don't want to see that even more. I'd rather them just continue to fucking lie to keep power, because they do have some reasonable ways of governing. they're just lying to keep their power, but they know that the motherfucker was lying about he's lying about it on his blogs. He's back online on these blogs saying that the biggest fraud ever, my election was stolen. But I still don't want people like McCarthy to be replaced with somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene.
See, to me, they're pretty much like, I get what you mean by, he's like more reasonable.
Yeah.
But to me, they're pretty much like just different sides of the same coin. When it comes to like what their goal is and what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I mean, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's just like AOC said, she's very unwell.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, if you can be like Kevin McCarthy and like you said, stand on one side and say this, and then stand on the other side and like say the complete opposite. I mean, if you could do that, I feel like you're pretty unwell too.
Yeah, but I can't see Kevin McCarthy going down the halls and screaming into mail slots. I don't see that. Okay.
Hey, he might surprise you. He might push him to the limit and he might just snap, But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. And I mean, I kind of agree. But at the end of the day, for me, they're just like all the same for the most part.
Well, I liked what we were talking about yesterday, that if the party did happen to split and you have at least two major factions, you're also going to see the rise of like the Green Party and other smaller parties. So it'll like level the playing field a little bit. And I understand the Democrats would have a huge advantage.
They would dominate every election.
Yeah, they'd have a huge advantage, but you would start to see the rise of other parties, and which is basically what we need in this country is more parties to choose from, more ideas to choose from, and smaller platforms would give us, I think, a better government.
I would agree with that, but I don't think it would work out that smoothly. Like in an ideal world, that would work.
Well, I'm not saying it would happen like within a year, but I'm talking about 5-10 years from now.
Yeah, that's my thing. I think it would take a long time for that balance of power to kind of even out over time.
Yeah,
because if the Republican Party was to split in any way, the Democrats would dominate they'd have probably the next like 3 or 4 presidential elections like guaranteed in the bag.
Yeah.
The Senate, the House, like it would be blue like down the line for a few election cycles.
Don't you find that to be dangerous also?
I guess it just would depend on their goals and their ideas. I mean, if you have like a dominant party, but all their like goals and ideals are like progressive and like they benefit society, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. Okay. It's when you turn like more like oppressive and like authoritarian, that it could become dangerous. If Hitler was all about peace and love and equality, nobody would care if he was their leader for 45 years. But I think it's more about the ideas and what your plan is to do. And I mean, for the most part, I don't think Democrats are like, they don't have bad ideas for the most part. They have some pretty stupid ideas, but like their main ideas, like the main, the big bullet points, right, I tend to agree with on the most part. So I personally wouldn't see anything wrong with that. Except for like the whole war thing. Both Democrats and Republicans love like their war. So that's something that wouldn't change.
Yeah. I see Democrats in power over a period of 10 years. We would have a healthier infrastructure and better schools, lower taxes, things like that. And
lower taxes for us, not for like the rich.
Right.
It's not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing at all.
That's how you get a 50 plus billion or 70 plus billion surpluses in our state.
Yeah.
When you tax the rich, like it's literally right in front of our face. When you tax the rich, this what happens. You get a lot of money, and the state reinvests it in what? In the people and infrastructure and society.
Yeah, and the rich flee.
And guess what? But the rich, they're still fucking rich. Like at the end of the day, they're still rich. They still got their money. They still, living their life to the fullest. It,
Yeah, like Bezos. Bezos like, here, tax me. I don't give a fuck. Whatever. I got trillions of dollars,
yeah,
whatever.
he just bought like a $500 million yacht,
Yeah,
and his yacht needs a little yacht for maintenance. So
right.
there you go. And we still get a surplus. So I feel like, he gets his boat, we get our 12 billion to help homelessness.
Yeah. And the $600 that we're going to get back from the state.
Yeah, which I
Awesome.
mean, and that's why I feel like these like stimulus checks are kind of they're like precursors to what I think will inevitably happen with like automation, with the advancement of like AI and automation,
Yeah.
um, which I think it's going to be UBI, like universal basic income.
Uh-huh.
I think we're on a path where it's gonna be a necessity for uh, like a big part of the country. So I think it's gonna happen at some point. That's why I'm very pro Yang, like when he wants to run for mayor of New York, because that's one of his main things is he wants to do UBI in New York, and I feel like New York would be a very good experiment for UBI because
Yeah.
it's very large scale. It's a very big city or big state, or no, yeah, he's running for mayor, so it's big city. There's millions of people there, and
Yeah.
if he can make it work there, I think it would show a lot of people like, oh shit, like maybe we can do this, on a
Yeah.
big scale.
Lalo, it's already working because if you look at the statistics in the United States, credit card debt is down, savings accounts are up, and it's all because we get these stimulus checks. And the experts are like astounded. And how can you not say that a UBI is a great thing? How can you not say that? Because it's working. Everything, debt's being paid down, savings is up, and the economy's still rolling after 14 months of being shut down, and it's all because of that. And Jeff Bezos, because thank you, Amazon, for keeping us afloat this last year and a half.
I think people don't want to acknowledge that it works or the benefits of it because they've been like told, by so many people throughout their lives that, you got to work hard for what you want and, don't take handouts, like nothing in life is for you, blah, 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 all
Right.
these like cliche sayings. So, when they see like the concept of UBI or like, the idea of like food assistance, food stamps, stuff like that. Like it just has such a negative connotation. They're
Yeah.
like, nah, I work for my money. Like I don't need no handout, blah blah.
Uh,
And it's just
Yeah.
like, okay, but it helps everybody. It's not a handout. It's literally your own money coming back to you. It's
Y-
taxpayer money.
It's that's funny, isn't it? That we pay into taxes and they want to give it back, and we're like, no. But it's old. That is older than the Bible, man. It's in the Bible. If a man doesn't work, a man doesn't eat, and that's been taken out of context. I understand, but still, everything in the fucking Bible's been taken out of context and used
Yeah,
against us to control us. So when all these programs begin to kick in, no one wants to say, "Hey, that's the money that I paid to help my culture, to help my society." But they want to take that money and build a war machine. And it's just so fucking insane that they have fooled everyone into thinking that if you don't work, you don't eat. Well,
yeah,
why don't we do things that are considered work that we love and let machines do the work like you've been saying? Let let the rise of machines happen. It's not going to be fucking Terminator. That's bullshit. It's going to be a better society where people who are artistic and creative can do the things that they love, and a better society, a more peaceful society. And the people who can't take care of themselves, we can take care of them without making them fucking feel bad.
yeah. And I mean, like that whole idea of like uh, how you were saying, like you don't work, you don't eat. That could have been true, like centuries ago. when you literally had to like, grow your own crops and, like hunt your own food
Right.
and build your own homes, like, so at some point, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well, then it
But
becomes obvious if you don't want to
yeah,
hunt, you're not going to eat.
yeah,
But
but I think now we're so far advanced and we're so powerful and rich and, like I said, technologically advanced, where we're able to move past that. And there was a time where, if you were born with like a deformity or like a mental issue, they'd just kill you,
right.
you know, um, because they had the whole like survival of the fittest, like, it's they're not normal, so we just got to kill them.
Right. We can't take
Like,
care of them.
yeah. So, and now, we moved on from that. We don't have that same line of thinking anymore. So I feel like it's the same kind of thing. Like we're progressing as a society. We're not just basic animals anymore with like basic animal instincts. We have a conscience. We have ideals. We have morals. Um, and we should use those to better you know our way of living.
But we got to get past that old idea
Yeah,
first.
for sure.
So
I feel like we're close. We're getting there.
we're getting there. I have a lot of faith. I actually have a lot of faith in your generation and the one before, the ones coming after you. I don't think there's many progressive people who are older, and I'm not saying that as I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that's what is.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot to be in your 60s, 70s, and 80s to understand what's going on for people that are in their teens, 20s, and 30s. It takes a whole hell of a lot because the younger people can't see what the older people see, and the older people can't see what the younger people are experiencing. So there seems to be that disconnect. And luckily, and this podcast is an example of one generation connecting with another.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
and I really appreciate that about this. And let me back up one thing, one part. You were saying that, yeah, it was taken out of context. I used to be a pastor of a church, and that is taken out of context because people say if a man doesn't work, a man doesn't eat. It's in the New Testament, Thessalonians, I think. But anyway, the the translation is if a man chooses not to work. See, there's a big difference in that. If I choose not to work, then there seems to be a problem. But if I can't, or my job's been taken away from me, or there's all kinds of things you can read into that. It's not necessarily laziness, but laziness is I choose not to work.
Yeah.
So if you're lazy, I still think you need to be taken care of because ethically you're right, morally you're right. Even those who are lazy need to eat, but
And
we
even
don't
if you like, or go ahead, finish.
we don't need to demonize these people. We need to stop doing that.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, like, there's like this whole, like, I've seen a few stories right now about, like people not going back to work,
Right,
because, like with their unemployment benefits, like they probably make more than working, a minimum wage job for
right.
40 hours a week. And like, that's a big, like, talking point. Like we shouldn't pay them more to just stay at home. And it's like, no, it's the other way around. Like you're supposed to pay them, with these jobs more.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
like, there's restaurants like offering like $100 just to interview. Like they're so strapped for staff, like they need employees like ASAP. And people are like they're starting to finally realize like no, that's a shit job with like shit pay. Like I don't need that. I'm better than that. So like in that sense, like choosing not to work because you've realized like your self-worth and what your labor is worth, I think is a good thing because it's going to force all these other companies to raise their wages,
Yeah,
to accommodate, like, how they always like to say a living wage. And people always like to talk about living wage, like, oh, well, what's a living wage? Like, what is it? What exactly does that mean? It's different in different states, cost of living, blah, blah, blah.
right.
And yeah, that's true. Like cost of living is different in different places. But, when we first introduced the term, minimum wage and what it meant and what it was meant to be. I think it was in like the mid 1900s, like FDR era is when it started to come around.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure I remember reading, they described the minimum wage and the living wage as, being able to support a family of 4 people. So, mom, dad, 2 kids, with their rent, utilities, bills, food, all that stuff. So enough money to cover that. And then on top of that, about 10% of their total wage for like leisure stuff, like vacations, going out to eat, going to the movies, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So
Expendable cash. You can save it or
yeah,
you can spend it. There you go.
yeah. So, I mean, it's been like defined in the past. So we know what that means, which, and you can apply that to, different states. A livable wage in California is probably going to be a lot more than, a livable wage in,
West Virginia.
Montana.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So, but we know what it means. Like we know what you need for it to be a livable wage.
Well, if you question what livable wage means, you're just being stubborn. That's it, because it's just a financial calculation. That's all it is. Like minimum wage, financial calculation. A living wage, just calculate the finances. Just make parameters for it, define it in Congress, pass the fucking law, and then states can go, okay, this is what it looks like. And people can live. Like you said, you need 10% above that in order to go to a movie or go out to dinner or, save up for a vacation. But fuck, people were like, which bill am I going to pay this month so I can let the other ones go?
Yeah.
And that's not right.
Like I've seen that about like 2/3 of this country can't afford like a $400 unexpected expense.
I know.
And
I know.
at that point you have to kind of look at, if you're very like against like raising wages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like once you if you hear that, you kind of have to, I mean, in my opinion, you have to kind of take a step back and really think about that. Like if 2/3 of American people can't afford a $400 unexpected expense, like is it really that, 2/3 of the country are, lazy and, don't want to work? Or is it maybe something wrong with the system?
According to the church, they're just lazy.
So for me, you kind of have to.
And Republicans. Okay, don't forget Republicans.
You kind of have to look at it that way and be like, well, if there's so many people suffering and there's so many people, living below the poverty line, like chances are the system's probably, you kind of maybe have to tweak it a little bit because there's no way, there's 60% of Americans are just lazy and, don't want to work and don't know how to work.
Lalo, let's put that in context. $400. The average cost to replace a motor in a car is $5,000. So if a family has a broke ass car, which a lot of that 60% does, and that thing goes bad, they're just shit out of luck. And that's not right. Because then it's this domino effect of I can't get to work. I lose my job. Now I don't even have that minimum wage job. And how am I going to protect my family? I think the cool thing here is what you were talking about is that people not going back to work for $300 extra a week. It's almost like everybody in that arena is on strike without actually being a member of a union. They're just tired of it. I'm not going back to work and make less money than I'm fucking sitting here making more money. I could go back to work and work a shit job that I fucking hate. I hate my boss. I hate my life, but I can go back and do that for $300 less. What kind of position are we putting people in? And why do people think that they're the demons? They're demonizing these people. They don't want to go back to work. No, fuck right. They don't want to go back to work. I wouldn't want to go back to work. Would you? That's a
No.
question we need to ask. That's the question we need to ask ourselves. When we see a situation like that, we need to just step into it and say, okay, I don't have any savings. I don't have any way of fixing my car if it gets broken. I can't pay all my bills. I'm drowning in debt. Do I really want to live like that? No, I don't. And nobody does. And you're right. A universal basic income is the way to go here. And it's not a fucking handout. It's not a handout. It's our money. Give it back.
Yeah. And I mean, I mean, Yang and other people have kind of laid out the plan to, how to pay for it and how to, be able to afford to give, everybody, like $1,000 a month. Um, and
I could use it. I mean,
it's
I could
not,
use it.
it's not that hard, like to afford it, like tax dollars. I mean, most of it's, coming from tax dollars, but those tax dollars are coming from, the super rich, the super wealthy.
The
So,
guy who needs a yacht for his yacht.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, if you were to tax, the 1% at, get rid of like capital gains tax and just make, or like raise capital gains tax, um, close all these loopholes that they find to, to avoid paying taxes. You could tax religious institutions. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
That probably won't happen, but I mean, if I was making the decisions, that'll be like number one on the list.
Well, that's because you're evil, Lalo. We know that.
That's fine with me.
That's
But
fine with me.
there's like so many ways to get like this revenue to be able to afford that. And once, let's say we keep it at 1,000, like $1,000 a month. For most people, like a vast majority of people, that's most, if not all of like their rent or like their mortgage.
Right.
Um, so you're literally like you're able to almost live for free, or quote unquote free.
Right.
Um,
And then you're going to
so
take
you're
that money that you were paying your rent. You're going to save a little bit of it, which is going to increase, help the economy. You're going to spend a lot of it because you're going to fix your car. You're going to get some new clothes. You're going to get some new shoes. You're going to do those things for your kids that you want to do. And that's going to pump
yeah.
huge amounts of money back into the economy so you can tax it, so you can give it back. And it's just the circle of life here, folks. Think about it, but no, that's a handout.
And stuff like that being more like free of like those financial burdens, it really does something for people's like mindset. It's kind of hard to, to do what you like and, pick up a hobby or
Yeah,
explore like what do I really like to do when you're working, 2, 3 jobs
right.
and trying to, make ends meet. Maybe you get UBI and, you only have to work one job a week. And, maybe you get to spend more time with your kids. Maybe you end up going back to school, during the night where you
Right.
didn't have the chance before. So all these things, it's not just benefiting you like financially, but like mentally and your whole well-being. You might, like I said, go back to school and you end up getting a better job, you know?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's um, like, I really don't see any like negatives with a concept like that.
Well, you also stop cleaning your gun so much and planning that mass shooting because you're a little happier.
So it's just, it's been proven like people, when they don't have to stress and worry about all that extra stuff, you're happier. Like you said, you get to focus more on yourself and what you like to do and the things that you like to do.
Yeah,
And, an added benefit is, like you said, you spend more money, we get, or, our GDP goes up, all that stuff.
yeah.
So it's just like a win across the board.
Then you got time to sit down on a Sunday morning and do a podcast instead of sleeping because you're so fucking tired from working 120 hours out last week, right?
Exactly.
Listen,
So
dude,
it's,
I'm a perfect example of this. When I first moved to California 20 years ago, I mean, I was living paycheck to paycheck. Things were fucked up all the time. I've worked hard, gotten a job, got an education. My wife works, everything. I, and, I went out and spent a lot of money. I bought an amp this weekend and a new guitar, and that's all I've done all weekend. And I was sitting down thinking about, and what you just said reminded me. I am much happier than I used to be, much more open-minded. I have time to sit and think. I have time to play guitar, enjoy my life, and I feel like if more people had more money, and you can't, they say money doesn't buy happiness. Well, it fucking buys guitars, okay?
And
And
guitars make you happy.
and the guitars make me happy. So the thing is, if more people had more money, I think we'd have less suicide, less stress, less anxiety. That things would
We
just,
have more freedom.
we'd have more freedom. And dude, if you could explain to me why rural America, like Appalachia and Georgia and all these places where people live in just absolute fucking poverty, don't support this. I don't want that. I don't want that. That's a handout. I ain't taking no fucking handout. And it's like, dude, how are you so fucking brainwashed that you think that that's a bad thing?
I think, like you said, it's a big like generation thing. And I feel like a lot of the South and like those southern states have kind of been stuck with the same mindset over multiple generations, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas like other areas like more like urban and more populous areas, there's chance for more progressive ideas, and you get more people together. Uh, you get to you tend to get more progressive ideas and liberal ideals in general. That's why big cities, you could go to like Georgia, it's a very red place, but Atlanta's a blue city, blue county.
Right. Like
Big city.
Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Same thing.
So I think they're just kind of stuck in this mindset of like past generations of like work hard for what you get, and uh, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, and that just the whole like cliche like
Yeah.
Republican.
And if you take a look and you read about it, I used to think it was because of isolation, but now we're not so isolated. We've got, the main line running right through Lewis County, West Virginia, and everybody's got high speed internet access. But here's the thing, as as we open up more, we get availability of information. All the young people are fleeing Appalachia, and all that's left there is, that older generation. And they're like, well, what are we going to do? Because we have no tax base anymore. Nobody's working. It just gets worse and worse and worse. And I think maybe that in the future, we'll see gentrification of Appalachia when people start to get tired of what the city is. They're going to flee back into Appalachia, but they're going to take their coffee shops and their libraries and their information and their new ideas and their progressiveness back into Appalachia and rebuild it. And I hope that happens. I really do.
Yeah, it's like when people would try to make fun of California, like, oh, see what happens when you raise taxes. All these people, all these super rich people are leaving, or like just people in general, they're leaving, to places like Texas and
Yeah.
Florida. I was like, good. Like we have like 5 million uh, Democrats to spare. I'll lend them to Texas, and they'll vote blue over there and flip Texas for us. So that's fine with me.
Yeah, and housing costs will plummet, and it'll be fine. We'll be good. Thanks. I'll
Yeah,
get I'll
and
get that $400,000 house for 285,000. Excellent. Thank you.
so I mean, there's just a lot of like complexities when it comes to like bettering our society, and um, this idea of like Republicans are like small government, like we don't need the government, like the less government the better, and they've kind of demonized what the government is and what its role should be,
Right.
um, and it's not like that at all. Like it can be, that if you have like authoritarian governments.
Well, that's what they want because they want less government and more police. That's it right there. They
Yeah.
More police, and defunding the police is this evil thing, and we need less government and put the cops in charge of everything. That's a police state.
Yeah. But yeah, so what I say is like at the end of the day, you do need government power, because I mean we live in a huge country with, you know, almost 500 million people in it. Like there has to be some sort of like regulation and rules and, you know, something, some entity to enforce them. You know, and when you don't, when you get like these giant like, you know, Republicans are all about, you know, the free market and, you know, free market capitalism, and, you know, the market will balance itself out, you know.
Yeah. Trickle
And,
down
you know,
economics.
when you have these huge corporations or businesses that are self-regulated and they don't have government regulations, you get things like what happened with that Colonial Pipeline. You know, that's a private business. That's not a government like pipeline. That's a private business, private corporation that, you know, their cybersecurity wasn't, you know, well enough to prevent an attack. And I'm sure government regulations would have, you know, like, hey, like you have to keep, you know, your cybersecurity, you know, up to date, because, you know, it's a pretty important pipeline. If it gets compromised in any way, like you get what happened, you know, all over uh, the East Coast.
Right.
Same with, you know, Texas and their like utility companies. Like if you don't, you know, regulate them and, you know, make sure they're, you know, up to date and not using outdated equipment, stuff like that, you get what happened, you know, when their whole fucking power grid freezes over and people are dying.
I know. And Ted Cruz went to Mexico. I'll never let
So
that, I'll
you
never
need
let anybody forget that.
you need government to some degree. You can't not have any government, because then you get, then the greed takes over, because these corporations, these companies, these people that run them, you know, for them it's all about the bottom line. So if
Yeah.
they're not making money, or as long as they're making money, like everything else is secondary.
Yeah.
So
Our power grid is antiquated. It's open for attack. It's just this whole thing. If we didn't, I'm not with you on this one, because you say we need a little government. I say we need a lot of government
well, I don't want
because
to say a lot of government. Like I think we need a lot of government, but if I say a lot of government, then people get spooked out.
yeah,
So I just say we need government to a certain degree. But in
you're
my
not
head, that
saying what
in that I don't. I'm not saying what degree.
you just did, man. Everybody's spooked now. All 8 people who listen to us.
So it's just we have to. We can't just keep living like this because it's all that we know. You know,
Yeah,
we have to try to progress. We have to try new ideas, new concepts. And, you know, if they fail, okay, they fail. And, you know, we might tweak it. We might, you know, try something else entirely. But at least, you know, we've tried it, because we're at that stage as a society, as a, you know, humans in general, where, you know, we're past just surviving. You know, we can go into the realm of, you know, bettering our lives and maximize our happiness and wellness and,
yeah,
you know, mental health and all this stuff. Because, you know, as much as people want to believe, and, you know, that's fine if they do, as far as we know personally, we just have this life. So we have to maximize it to our fullest extent. I personally believe that. And,
oh,
you know,
what
especially
about
now
the
that
rest
we
of the
have the
world?
ability.
What about the rest of the world? Because really, we're only talking about the United States here. We're only talking about westernized culture. What about the rest of them? I mean, uh, I read yesterday that 1.43 billion shots have been given out, and there's a huge amount of people that have 2 shots, and there's only certain countries, and if you dig into the statistics of 1.43 billion, only 0.03% of those have gone into poverty-stricken countries. You think about that, man. That's a
Um,
problem. I mean, when like you said, I think there's 350 million of Americans now, and we are at the point where happiness and maximizing of pleasure and artistic and creative and all that shit. What about fucking Africa? If you look at the maps for the shots, Africa's not lit up at all.
yeah. Um, I think that's a money issue, like for these vaccine companies, because I mean they get paid, right, to like distribute these vaccines, and like we
Right.
pay them as a country, like, So like to me, all vaccines should be free. Like these come like all these stories about like patents and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, like people that are like anti, like we can't let our companies do all this work and research and then just give out these patents for free. Like I'm sure Johnson and Johnson will be fine without their profits of one vaccine. They have like 30 million products. The same with like Pfizer and Moderna and all these, big pharma companies. Like
Yeah.
these are multi-billion dollar uh, entities, and they'll be fine. So, when it comes to these other countries, like less developed countries, especially like Africa, like Middle East, stuff like that, um, I think we have to kind of figure our shit out first. Um, so they could see like, oh shit, like this is what they're doing and it's working out over there. Or we can try to lend a hand, but I feel like that's kind of dicey with our history of trying to interject ourselves in other countries' politics.
Yeah.
Um, we don't have a good history of that. So I think the best thing we could do is kind of lead by example. Um, and I feel like if we do it, Europe might follow soon. And then if Europe follows, then, um, that whole Eastern hemisphere will be like a domino effect. But places definitely like Africa, all these very like poor countries, they're definitely, we can't just sit there and wait for them to like industrialize and advance,
Yeah.
'cause that's gonna take them forever. Like we as a world have to come together and be like, okay, look, like they're suffering, like we have to help them, but not be so like intrusive and like force them. We have to give them the ideas of like, hey, look, this is what we're doing, this is how it works. Like you know we could apply it here. And I know it's a different landscape and it's different, almost like a different society in general.
Well, yeah, but you can't really even change the mind of somebody from Georgia. How you gonna fucking tell a Maasai that he needs to, and is he unhappy? And there's all these issues. It's
Yeah.
like,
And because I mean some people are perfectly fine living in like over there, like if they have like a little town,
right.
and, they have all they need in that town.
Yeah,
um
but in America we define that as abject poverty, and in their culture they're like, no, poverty means something to do with an economic system that we don't really follow. So we're not impoverished. We're fine.
yeah, I mean the main thing I would say is just make everybody comfortable and like happy with how they're living and how their society is running.
Yeah.
And if maybe they want something more, a little bit more, they want to experience something different, like they could do that. They could, we could like provide them with like the ability to travel to somewhere else and maybe start their life uh somewhere else.
Now you're getting into some philosophy, man.
Some open borders talk right there.
Whoa, be careful. Be careful. You might have, a black car sitting outside your house tomorrow.
I mean, I'll say this. I believe every human being in the world should be able to live wherever they want.
Okay, I'll give that. I mean, just not only just live where they want, but I think every human being should be able to maximize their life
And when I
on
say
their own terms.
yeah, when I say they should be able to live wherever they want, uh, I'm not saying you should be able to go into a home of a Palestinian and take their home from them.
Ooh, nice segue.
So um, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Because
that's an issue. That wasn't that I was hearing that they were going in one family at a time. Is that true?
yeah, they just go into your house and be like, "Hey, this is my house now," and like if you fight back, you get arrested or you get killed. So you're kind of
Fuck.
put up against the wall there.
That's a
But
sticky issue,
I mean,
man. That whole Middle East thing is
it's
fucked up.
complicated, And you hear that a lot. Oh, it's just, it's very complicated. And like, yeah, but you can't just use that and as a cop out, to not talk about it or to not have
Right.
an opinion on it.
Well, making
Because
pancakes is fucking complicated, but we figured it out.
yeah. So I mean, my thing is there's one side that is run by a government, a whole ass government from a country, and that government, that country is backed by the largest military in the world,
Right.
which is, the United States. Israel is backed by the United States.
Right.
And then the other side is, more of a like rogue, like terrorist organization, which would be Hamas. So one side literally has, all of the power. Um, and I feel like it's up to them to kind of, quell like everything that's going on because, you have the power to do it and you're not doing it. you know, and don't get me wrong, the other side, Hamas, like they've bombed like, schools and they've killed civilians, and there's no escaping that,
Right.
you can't deny that. But at the same time, uh, I just feel like one of them, if it was up to Israel, if Palestine put their hands up, like, all right, we give up, we're done. Like, we're not going to shoot at you guys anymore. We're going to bomb at you. We're not going to fight back. Within 10 years, Palestine would be gone completely. Because Israel's not just to be like, okay, you guys gave up. We'll just stop fighting too. No, it's okay. We'll stop fighting, but we're going to take over of what's left of you guys.
Right. You're
And
now
then,
you're
and
now
then
Israelis.
yeah. And it's not even that they would be Israelis. They would be kicked out because Israel, whether people like to believe it or not, it's like an apartheid state. Like they just want, like the people that, are very pro-Israel, and, the very idea of Israel in the first place came from people that believe that being Jewish is more than just religion. It's a nationality.
Right.
So therefore we should have our own nation.
That's why the UN did it.
And it's kind of, transformed from that to like, it's kind of ironic. I mean, it's kind of morbid to think about, but the Jewish community like went through a lot during, the whole World War II thing.
They
And
did.
even World War One, they were very demonized in World War One. So to turn around and kind of do basically the same thing that was done to you, I mean, you have to realize that at some point, like you're not, like, most people aren't entitled to like whole ass countries like that.
Right.
And if you wanted to take over, a piece of land, like you have to do something that's like unpopulated, which at this point it's like no part of the world unless you want to go to Antarctica. But so you're gonna have to find a way to like, live with people that, don't think like you, don't look like you. And a lot of people in Israel don't want that.
Yeah,
They,
historically though, human beings have done that from the beginning of his beginning. We write things down there. You look at the Kurds in northern Iraq. I mean, you just keep pushing people out that don't think like you. Look at us and the American indigenous peoples of North America. We just pushed them and pushed them and pushed them and killed them and then rounded them up. And now they're kind of like the Palestinians, except they don't have Hamas. They just live in these fucking desolate places full of shit, and everybody's an alcoholic, and that's what human beings do. And why, I can't tell you, but and how do you solve it? Can't tell you that either. We're gonna have to
yeah,
watch this shit play out.
because I truly believe if you sat down with like Palestinian leaders and officials, and even like Hamas leaders and officials, like if you really talk to them and um, sat down with them like diplomatically, uh, they would. I think some of them would be open to a two-state nation. Where you have Israel and Palestine, and there's a border somewhere,
Right.
they're just two nations. But I don't think if you sat down with Israel, any of them would agree to that because they don't want that. Israel wants everything. Whereas Palestinians and Palestine, I feel like they would be open. And I mean, because some of them have expressed that. Whereas there's no Israeli, government official or part of the government that has said, we'll be open to negotiation and like a two-state nation. Like, no, they want all the land.
I,
And
don't you
that's,
think though, if you could push
colonization.
the Palestinians back out of what the Israelis consider that holy land, don't you think that they would be okay with that? But then the Palestinians will be left out of what they consider their holy
Yeah.
land. It's a fucked up mess, and it's based in ideology, and it's really strange that there's so much violence over invisible gods in the sky, and it just seems so fucking odd to me. And that makes me wonder, is, like you said, is there more going on here than just the religious part? It seems like there's a whole genocide kind of thing happening
Yeah.
here.
It's definitely um, like genocide. Like you're trying to, they don't just want the land, like they want the people out,
Right.
whether that may be, exile or, 6 feet underground. They really don't care. They just don't want them to be there with them.
And
They
isn't
want like
that
an ethnic state.
funny? I mean, not ha ha funny, obviously, but isn't it odd how they claim it's because of religion, and then they go house by house by house to get rid of them?
Yeah, that's some uh like SS police state type
Yeah.
shit right there.
Well, the Israelis are they're very organized, and they have a lot of resources because of us, but they're very determined and very
And
tough. And you have
they
to
have
say,
yeah, because they have no reason to back down.
right,
Like I said, they have the United States like full force behind them, which is one thing I hate about like uh the United States and like Joe Biden. Like they're very like pro-Israel because it benefits their interest in the Middle East.
right.
It's not about, the well-being of, people in general. And like, they know, the United States know that there's, you know, genocide happening, and they're just like standing there. And to me that's like so disgraceful. It's absurd.
Yeah, and then at the same time pulling out of Afghanistan while they're they're just waiting. They're just waiting for us to leave, and they're going to take that shit over
Yeah.
again. And that same cycle is going to happen again. The same cycle in the Middle East. It's over and over and over again. And it's not for generations. It's for thousands of fucking years. It happens over there.
Yeah, the Middle East is just a very it's like a powder keg,
Yeah.
you know. It's just waiting to go off with anything. So if there's ever a World War III, I can guarantee you it's gonna start there,
Yeah, I believe
because
so.
there's many countries there that, on their own they're not powerful at all, but they're backed. Some are backed by China, some are backed by Russia, some are backed by us, and that's where the real power is.
Yeah, that's how
Where
the
you
world wars
where
start.
these huge superpowers are using these smaller countries as like their pawns,
Hmm.
as their excuse to like, oh well, they're our allies. If they go into war, we're gonna have to, be there for them.
Yeah,
And
proxy
then the
wars have
other
been happening forever.
yeah, and then the other side's gonna do the same. So it's literally like a Cold War, except there's actual war, in the middle of it, and there's genocide in the middle of it. And these uh big superpower countries are just using these smaller countries, and with no regard for the people that live there and their citizens, um because at the end of the day it's going to benefit them. So it is complicated. It's very complicated, but that doesn't mean we can just ignore it and be like, oh well, it's the Middle East, they've been fighting for fucking 100 years.
Well, yeah, it's not kind of like a Cold War, dude. It's exactly like the Cold War of the 70s and 80s. We were fighting hot wars in Afghanistan. We were fighting hot wars in uh, Indonesia. Vietnam was one. That all that shit was, we were fighting the Russians without fighting the Russians. And now, like you said, it's the Chinese and the Russians and us, and we're in a Cold War with those people. Economically, we trade with them. We sit down at the table with them. We work out things financially, and then the back door, we're killing Palestinians. We're helping kill people. It's fucking sad. You're right. It's so complicated and so convoluted, and I don't know. I don't even know how to ask the questions about how to start fixing it, because I don't think it's fixable. I think the oil has to run out.
Yeah, because I mean that's probably the main reason for like for the smaller countries and like Israel and Palestine, places like that. Like for them, it's about like religious freedom or like what it's for. It's more of a religious war to them.
Right.
But for the outside countries, the big ones, it's a resource war for them.
Right. And when the resources run out, are we going to say, well, fight amongst yourselves, figure it out,
Yeah.
fuck it, and we're pulling out?
I mean, if there was no oil there, the United States would probably be on Palestine's side, if we're being honest, because like you said, it's genocide. Like Israel wants to be an ethno state. Like that's not right.
Right.
Like that's what Germany wanted.
Right.
Germany wanted, only Germans, and they wanted to, pretty much take over the world and everybody to be a certain way and look a certain way and believe a certain way of life. And then you turn around and do the exact same thing. Like, how do you not see that? And and the thing with me is, if you talk to Palestinians and like just regular citizens, like a lot of them just want, like they just want to be able to live their lives,
Right.
And there's Hamas. Like Hamas is a terrorist organization. I'm not saying they're not. Like they are a terrorist organization. Like
Sure.
they've killed, kids, and they've bombed schools and places like that. But when it comes to the other side, it's not just their government. There's a lot of Israeli people that truly believe, what their government says when it comes to like, we should be the only ones that occupy this whole land.
Right.
Whereas on the other side, it's like, I just want to live here, like, in peace. Like they're not trying to, conquest anything. They're not trying to take over, any, country or anything. Like they just wanted to live where they were at. It's the other side that's, kind of eating at their country, chunk by chunk. And it's, like I said, they're not going to back down. Israel's not going to back down. They have no reason to. They have no incentive to. They have, huge power on their side. They have all the power on their side. So
And the only reason they don't go in there and just fucking finish it is I think they want to take it a little bit at a time so the world can swallow it.
Yeah, exactly. Because like I was going to say, they're just going to like wait them out and, do it little by little.
Yeah.
So it's kind of almost like unnoticed, like
Exactly.
it's not going to be like this huge, like fucking like blitzkrieg, fucking, take over a whole country in, 2 hours.
Which they could.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially with all the money and, weapons and, bombs that we're giving them.
Yeah.
Like they could absolutely do it.
But don't you think if you boil it, if you take that entire situation and just take Israel and say, let's boil it down to a single person, and they have a victim mentality, and a lot of victim mentalities, like children growing up in abusive situations, when they leave that situation, they become the abuser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that on a large
scale,
whole nation scale.
Yeah. So
but like
it's understandable.
That doesn't really excuse it. It's understandable, but
right. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's understandable, but it's not excusable. Okay. The psychology of it works, but we need to figure out how to take the victim mentality out and say, listen, you were treated poorly. Let's look at what you're doing now. And how did you feel when you were doing that, when it was happening to you? Now that you're the person on the other side, let's take a look. but you can't do that, especially when you're pumping F-22s at them and here's a fucking aircraft carrier. And, oh, by the way, do you need some dirty bombs? We got that too.
Yeah. So it's a whole mess down there.
Yeah.
But I mean, if anybody's right in this whole situation, I feel like it's me, because I'm the one that's like, and not about like who's on the like who's in the wrong, but in the whole like this is what I've been saying, man. Like religion, like this, it's all because of religion.
I love you, man. You're like,
If it
if
wasn't for that,
anybody's right, it's me.
if it wasn't for the religious part of it, like there would be a lot less wars.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure there would still be wars, but a lot less of them. I can guarantee you that.
Well, wars of ideology have that most of them have some sort of religious or financial factions to them. That's just the
But
way
see,
it
like
is.
those, like wars based on like resources or like land, that's like you said, understandable,
Right.
But wars based on fake books and like people in the sky that you've never seen in your life.
Yeah.
Um,
And
to
you
me
only
that
will possibly meet in your death, and you can't prove that. So,
to me
right.
that's not understandable. But
We don't
I
like you
mean,
because you don't wash your hands right.
it still happens. So
All right, man. That this has been an interesting hour, dude. Thank you.
I'd definitely like to see where it goes. By the time we record our next episode,
Yeah.
like how are things over there? Because it's pretty active right now. Um,
Yeah. We'll have
a lot
to
more than it's been in like decades. So
more rockets since 2014, but more violence that I've seen in the Middle East in a long, long time. So let's
we'll
plan
put
on
a pin
doing
in it.
this as much as we can to follow this.
Yeah, because
And
it's a very a lot of people might think like, oh well, why would I care? But it affects a lot of countries and a lot of people
it affects us
indirectly.
all. It affects us all. One per Listen, man, I believe that one person killed in combat over a religion affects us all psychologically, even if we don't want to think about it.
Hmm.
Even if we're not aware of it. When I see someone go down because somebody has a book that they believe in, I'm thinking, what the fuck are we doing here? Come on.
Yeah.
It's
When
like
you
you
say I'm
said,
killing you in the name of this book.
when you say I have a gallon of water, and the resources thing like that's happening here in California, there's things that are undercutting. We're undercutting people. We're taking water away from people that need it so we can have extra water. That's wrong also. So resource wars, there's enough for everyone here. Everybody needs to calm down, use less. That's how you solve resources. But how do you solve fucking something like my God's right and
Better than
yours
yours.
is wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get together more often this week so we can get in trouble and become, anti-Jewish, because I'm sure someone will say that over some of the shit you just said.
I'm not anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic. I'm anti-genocide. So take that as you
Anti-genocide.
will. I was against the Nazis and I'm against Israel because
God
uh,
damn, dude.
so take that as you will.
I will take it as I will take it intelligently. I just hope everyone else does too.
I'm not against Israel because of who they are. I'm against Israel because of what they do.
Fair
So
enough.
I think that's fair.
Fair enough. So on that note, I will say what I always say. Please take this shit as a grain of salt because it's built right into the title. Lalo and I may be thoroughly fucking wrong. That's just the way it is. That's why we named it this. It's our opinions. If you don't agree, fuck off.
I always say that.
Well, I'm the old
Well,
guy.
with certain ideas. If you don't agree with certain ideas like basic human decency and rights, then you can fuck off.
Well, that's saying the same thing as fuck off, Lalo. That's Hey, man.
Yeah, but if you want to disagree with me because on like abortion, that's understandable. But if you want to disagree with me, like, hey, we should not have poor people, and you're like, no, we kind of need poor people, then you can fuck off.
Then you can fuck off. All right, man. I'll catch you next time, all right?
All right, man.
And make sure it's not a long time this time. And try to be tired because, fuck, you're right on point this morning. All right? All right, man. This has been Bob.
And Lalo.
And this has been the Thoroughly Wrong Project. Thanks for spending the morning with us. See you next time. You have now experienced the Thoroughly Wrong Project with your podcast hosts, Lalo and Bob. We can now be found on Pandora Radio, Apple Podcasts, Podium Podcast, or by searching The Thoroughly Wrong Project to locate our YouTube channel. You can contact us directly by email at thoroughly-wrong@gmail.com or just leave a comment on any of our platforms. Until next time, thanks for spending your valuable time with us, and remember, always speak up and never be afraid to be thoroughly wrong.